Throughout the world, an increasing number of people are choosing to buy both food and other products at supermarkets rather than at independent stores. In 1960, 60% of food purchases in the UK were made at small independent retailers, but by 2000 this had shrunk to 6%, while the share of chain stores had risen to 88%. A British member of the European Parliament recently claimed that half of the British population now does its shopping in just 1,000 superstores' giant supermarkets. This change in behavior is not limited to developed countries. In Latin America, supermarkets had a 50 to 60% control of the retail food sector in 2005. This is a dramatic increase considering that the share was only 10 to 20% 10 years earlier. The same tendency can be observed in developing countries in other parts of the world. But consumers need to think about the consequences of their choices. It is not difficult to understand why supermarkets are so popular. They are well designed and well lit. They display a wide range of different products, including ready-made meals alongside fresh food, and even many different brands of the same product. They promise guaranteed quality at reasonable prices. Consumers are attracted by the idea that they can save money by buying extra quantities of special offers or by earning points according to the amount that they spend. They appreciate the time they can save by buying everything they need under one roof and at one cash register, rather than having to make a series of small purchases at different specialist shops. Of course, supermarkets have their critics. A frequent argument is that they drive out the independent family-run shops that provide a focus for local communities. Supermarkets are anonymous spaces, but in small shops both staff and customers tend to talk to each other. Reference is also made to the excessive use of packaging and to the increase in the use of cars for shopping, which worsens traffic congestion and air pollution. Less visible to the consumer are the effect on producers of the fierce competition between supermarkets and the resulting appearance of a small number of extremely powerful multinational companies. When the figures are actually laid out, the facts are striking. For example, in 2004 the top 10 supermarkets, led by Walmart US and Carrefour France, had a 24% share of the global food market, as opposed to 18% in 2000. In the UK, four supermarkets are responsible for 75% of food sales, with Tesco in first place at 29% followed by Asda, which was purchased by Walmart in 1999. All the large supermarkets are global businesses. For example, both Walmart and Tesco have subsidiaries in Japan, CU and C2 network respectively. For those supermarket chains that have so far survived, there are clear advantages to this process of amalgamation. In particular, greater size enables supermarkets to negotiate favorable deals with suppliers. If the advantages of scale are passed on to customers in the form of cheaper prices, there are also clear benefits for the consumer, although the claim that supermarkets are always cheaper than independent stores is disputed. More important, however, is the way in which the big retailers exercise their power over suppliers, including not only the small farmers, but even the big food companies such as Nestlé. Scholars have said that the chain of supply is like an hourglass. On one end are the farmers and other suppliers of food, on the other end are the consumers, in the middle is a narrow passage. This passage symbolizes the big retailers, who increasingly control both supply and demand and are therefore able to make sure that food is bought at the lowest possible price. One example that is often given is the banana. Like milk and bread, it is said to be a key product that is regularly bought by consumers and one whose price they are thought to notice. Supermarkets compete with each other by offering low prices in key products. The idea is that a customer who has entered store A because its bananas are cheaper than store B may stay there to buy other, not key, products, even if they are not cheaper than at store B. If banana producers were able to sell directly to consumers, the price would be decided by the relationship between supply, the amount of bananas available, and demand, the amount of bananas that consumers wanted. By the end of the 1990s, however, more than 3/4 of the global trade in bananas was controlled by just 5 companies, with 2 companies, Chiquita and Del Monte, having about 25% of the market each. This position gave them a dominant role in deciding banana prices. Then Walmart, now ranked by Fortune as the world's biggest company, decided to flex its muscles. The balance of power in favor of supply was reversed in 2002, when it invited these companies to compete for a global contract to supply bananas to its stores. As a result, in Britain, for example, Walmart's UK subsidiary, Asda, was able to drop the price it charged for bananas from £1.08 to 94p per kilo. This triggered a price war between supermarkets that resulted in a further fall to 74p per kilo by 2004. The profits of the companies that controlled the banana trade were greatly reduced, but it was the workers in banana plantations in Latin America who really paid for the lower prices, through reductions in their wages. Although supermarkets did little more than place the bananas on their shelves, they were able to retain as much as 40% of the price, while 10% reached the grower, and only 2% the actual worker. Bananas are a product of developing countries, but agriculture in the developed world has also been affected. According to Corporate Watch, 50 years ago, farmers in Europe and North America were receiving 45 to 60% of the money that consumers spent on food. Today, that proportion has dropped dramatically to just 7% in the UK and 3.5% in the USA, although it is still 18% in France. Supermarket regulations about the size and appearance of vegetables and fruit cause further problems. Apples, for example, can be rejected if they are too green or not crisp enough, regardless of the taste. What should the concerned consumer do? One solution for those able to pay more is to buy goods with the Fair Trade label. The label guarantees that farmers have received a fair price and that agricultural workers enjoy adequate wages and living standards. Supermarket chains in the UK and elsewhere stock fair trade brands of bananas and other products, primarily tea and coffee, alongside cheaper, not fair trade goods. In 2005, over 5% of the bananas sold in the UK had the Fair Trade label. The UK market share of fair trade ground coffee jumped from 1.5% in 1999 to 20% in 2004. However, despite its current success, particularly in Europe, the fair trade movement alone is unlikely to be able to correct the imbalance of power. There are claims that supermarkets charge unnecessarily high prices for fair trade products. Moreover, some cynical people suggest that the big retailers only display fair trade goods so that they can claim to give customers a choice without having to introduce any fundamental changes in their buying policies. In other words, greater changes in the behavior of customers will be needed to widen the middle of the hourglass.